All right, we want to welcome everyone for joining us this morning. I'm Colin Murray. I'm the Executive Director with Dane by Local. I want to thank you for joining us. So just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. I just saw a report about a half an hour ago. It was a nationwide research firm showing that 22% of small businesses have now closed in the United States. Very unfortunate. And that number is sure to rise as we continue into the next few months here. So it's really important that we support our local businesses, not only just watching off our own business, but those around us as well. So remember to support local businesses best we can at every opportunity that we can. We need our small businesses to remain in business and to be part of the fabric of Dane County and South Central Wisconsin. So I think that the numbers here in Dane County, the percentages are lower. I'm only aware of 5 Dane by Local members that have shut down permanently, unfortunately, but it could be a lot worse. So hopefully we'll be able to keep those numbers, those percentages low. I'm sure that the grant program that Dane County has put together with the $10 million has definitely helped in that regard. So hopefully we can continue to support our local businesses, keep them open, keep them surviving during this challenging time. We are watching the federal stimulus program that is working its way through Congress, slowly working its way through Congress. What the key that we're really watching for is when they refer to funding for local government. If there's some additional funding put into the stimulus program, that could mean some additional grant dollars for Dane County. So that's where we're watching for. I'm not real optimistic that we're going to see that in the next round. My guess is that it's more like January that we'll be seeing some of those local dollars flow again, but we'll see. You know, nothing's wrapped up at this point. They're still going back and forth, still negotiating. So we'll see what happens with all of that. So we'll keep an eye on that and keep you posted on that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is next week is Labor Day on Monday. So we will not have a webinar next week. It'll be the following week after that. We'll resume on Monday at 10 o'clock. So with that, we will turn things over to Peggy from Strategic Brand Marketing to introduce our speaker for today. Peggy.
Thanks, Colin. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see everybody on here this morning. Before we jump in to our conversation with Secretary Caleb Frostman, just a note, many of you know that I'm Vice Chair on Wisconsin Small Business Regulatory Review Board, and we are set to meet later this week. If anyone has rules or regs that they feel may need to be looked at, please reach out to me. I'll go ahead and put my, pardon me, my email address in the chat so you have that and you can reach out. And that's true of any time, but we will meet this week. So if there's something urgent, please let me know about that. So always so happy to see Secretary Caleb Frostman with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's funny, Mondays are always our big day for data and numbers. So Sunday night's always a restless night, but our numbers look in the realm of what's been normal, and some look really good and some, of course, we'd love to see a little higher, but anyways, for a Monday with all of our data, I'm feeling pretty good.
That's good. Good. I'm glad. It's been a while since we've seen you, and I just want to, we have some questions coming in. And again, if you do have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat box. We have a number of them coming in. But if you could just, we have a number of things to tackle, but if you can just kind of take us back, the last time we chatted, PUA was just starting to get ramped up. I think it was only at 3%, and I'm sure you've come a long way since then. So can you give us an update on where you're at with PUA?
Yeah, so that's a good timely update. So with PUA, that was obviously the program put forth to help those folks that wouldn't otherwise be eligible for UI. And to this point, we've gotten about 100,000 plus applications, like 105, 110,000 applications. We've resolved 74,000 as of today. So we're about 70% through. And the folks that we have remaining are either really new, so they're just, haven't been worked on yet, or A lot of what's left are those more challenging, PUA applications that are more complicated. And I think as last time, any PUA application requires a lot of manual entry and application process. We don't have, wages in our system for folks that aren't attached to an employer. And so all of that process takes people to examine and work those applications. So we're getting through there. I think, we probably peaked as far as, getting through our easy paid and our easy denied earlier this summer. So what we have left are either brand spanking new or some of those more challenging applications that require some of our more senior folks to look at those. But we're happy to have made significant progress. Obviously, we'd like to continue to do that as quickly as possible. But as of this morning, we've resolved 74,000 PUA applications out of about 105,000-ish.
That's outstanding. So hiring that 500 group of folks seemed to have really helped turn the corner to get those processed.
Yeah, we hired a lot of people. So I think that was kind of our big focus. I mean, there were a lot of things that, the things that were within our control were our staffing levels, our effort, and our strategy. And so we, in a matter of a couple months, I think about maybe 3 total, we went from about 500 folks in UI to just under 2,000 when you include our vendors and some intergovernmental reassignees and some of those things. So we were, I think, peaked in July around 1950 between our call centers, the folks we've hired, and I think we're still in that 1850 range. So still a pretty high sustained level of staffing, and we'll probably have that for some time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks that I'm hearing that most of the folks that I'm aware of at least have been through the system, but a lot of folks that are still waiting, it's just like, oh, I have to send this in, I have to send this in. And what people don't realize, because we're used to just about everything being electronic right now, is that if you send something to the office, somebody has to be there to open it and receive it and stamp it and record it. It's a process. It's not just, you're not the only one that they're working on. So there's a number of applications. There's a number of steps in that process, and that does take time. There's no way to fast step that. And if you do, you may have errors. So just thank you to you and your staff for moving so quickly once you were able to get this thing up and running. I know it's made a lot of a difference for a lot of businesses. So appreciate that. Someone is now asking, and I don't know if it's about PUA, how long does adjudication take? Is that part of the PUA process?
It can be. Generally speaking, adjudication is just the catch-all phrase for determining eligibility. So to this point, throughout the pandemic, adjudications have mostly been associated with traditional UI. And that process, I'm sure it's not intentionally, but that is kind of it's a tricky question to answer because it could be a matter of 30 seconds with a really easy solution that is found in our system or elsewhere, or it could require multiple phone calls going back to employers over the last 18 months. So depending on the issues, it could be a number of weeks depending on response times, or it could be a matter of minutes depending on how sticky the situation is. And so yeah, it can be really, really quick, or it can take quite a while.
Yeah. And I would imagine it depends, right? Like if you didn't send in the right paperwork, it's going to take a little longer. You got to send the right. I've heard of that happening as well, where you've asked for a tax return and somebody said, oh, I didn't send the whole return. I sent a page. And so there's things like that. If you haven't gotten yours and you're still in the process, just be patient. As you can imagine, this is a very, there's people doing this. This isn't an automatic situation. So just hang in there with that. So a couple of questions, and I'm just going to try and while we're on the PUA subject, are PUA funds taxable income?
They are. So PUA, regular unemployment insurance, the FPUC supplemental benefit that came out and that expired as of July 25th, the new presidential lost wages assistance that we're currently programming, when that gets here, that'll be taxable. So it's always wise to assume that those are taxable benefits because all of them that I'm aware of are taxable, and you can choose to withhold those taxes from your payment if you choose. So that's another way to not to worry about it. If you get, I think for FPUC it was $510 versus $600, so it's just $90 less, but that weight is off your shoulders.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think that that is the information we talked about last time as well. If folks have specific questions, some are coming through that are very specific. We don't obviously have those answers here today. What's the best way for them to reach out? Is it a phone number? Is it an email? What's the best way for them to ask questions about their application?
So Peggy, if you can compile those and send them to me, I can certainly find the right answers. But yeah, it's really tricky. And I feel it's always hard when someone's got either their own situation or a family or a friend. It's really specific, that's nuanced, and it's just, and I will say, you know, over the course of the last 6 months, we've learned a lot, but one of the things that we really learned is just how, in my opinion, you know, unnecessarily complex this process can be. And, you know, there are obviously safeguards put in place for, you know, in a lot of cases, appropriate reasons, but this is just a really, really complicated, nuanced situation for a lot of the folks that are applying.
Yeah, and it had to happen quickly. You know, that just the simple, you know, that a pandemic it happened. Everything was shut down. I think you were able to turn around in pretty short order. People might disagree with me on that, but I think given the complexity and the amount of process involved, I think you guys did an outstanding job, and we're really grateful for that. Do you see, you know, when we last chatted, Caleb, you know, we were in, you know, this is what, 2 months ago or whatever, a different spot. Now, you know, we've had folks from Dane County Public Health on with us, and we're really looking at, you know, long-term pivoting. This is going to be maybe a year out from now. Do you see anything else coming through? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but, you know, people now are using these PUA funds, and business isn't what it should be. Do you see anything else, any other help for folks coming through?
So I think, you know, we were really hopeful, and we're, you know, maybe optimistic about the, you know, potential for Congress to come back in and extend FPUC, which was that $600 a week benefit, which was obviously helpful to those families, but also to the businesses those families support when they're trying to buy their groceries and buy back to school clothes and buy all those things. But when it comes to, you know, additional federal assistance, we applied and are hopeful, but, you know, just applied at this point for a $15 million employment training recovery grant. We have applied for a number of other federal grants to help with training coming out of this. And I think, I mean, this is just me hoping, and based on what we've seen thus far throughout the pandemic, I think I'm hopeful there will be other opportunities for federal assistance, whether it's for businesses or for job seekers or workforce consortium. But we're hopeful, and I'm hoping that we can hear from Department of Labor on the $15 million grant here soon. But we'll see what other programs come forward. I think they're just, you know, Wisconsin's been very fortunate. We've watched our unemployment rate tick down to about 7% from a high of 13 plus over the last few months. But there are still, we're down 216,000 private sector jobs year over year. So there's a lot of people still not working. And if you're on traditional unemployment insurance or even on PUA, the most you can get per week is $370. So if you're thinking about 7%, or if it goes back up to 10%, whatever that number is, trying to make it on $370 a week, that's really challenging for a lot of families and for a lot of businesses that expect dinners out or groceries to be bought or clothes to be purchased. It's just a really you know, challenging place. We're hopeful that there's additional assistance coming down the pipe.
Great. The 15 million that you just spoke about, is that the LWA, or the lost wages assistance, or is that something different?
Something different. So yeah, last week we did just apply for the LWA, which is through FEMA, which was as a result of the president's executive order. But the $15 million is outside of that. Those are training dollars to hopefully help you know, folks train for new jobs, new skills, help kind of retool their skill set for the economy post-COVID.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the LWA? So it's lost wages assistance. Last Thursday, through the state filed for that from the federal government. As I understand it, this will give folks an additional $300 per week. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep. So it was interesting when it first came out. There were a lot more questions than answers, and I think we worked very closely with FEMA and with the Department of Labor to answer a lot of those questions. So it would be $300 a week in supplemental benefits to those folks that are eligible for at least $100 in UI or the equivalent program. So PUA, there's a couple other federal programs like PEUC, or if you're on WorkShare, if you're eligible for more than $100, you would get this $300. And the states had to come up with a cost share. So you could choose between $300 a week or $400 a week. But if you did the 400, the state had to come up with the extra 100. And I think for a lot of states, it's just really challenging to identify those funds. And so Wisconsin is like, last I looked, I think it was 32 or 33 states had done the 300 and 2 had done 400. So we're in that 300 camp and are hopeful to receive an approval from FEMA here soon. But we started the programming for that. That's going to be, again, with our antiquated mainframe, it's really challenging to identify who those claimants are with our really old IT system, but we can, I think, do that between programming and testing. We're thinking about 6 to 8 weeks before we can get that delivered, but it's going to be those that are getting $100 or more get that $300 per week. And as of right now, they are allocating, once approved, 3 weeks worth of payments to each state to hopefully prevent that fund from running out. It's going to end at the earlier of the $44 billion they set aside running out, that fund dropping to $25 billion or December 27th of this year. And so we're hopeful to get that program as quickly as possible, get our official approval, and get those checks out to claimants, going back to, and it's backdating to that week of August 1st, which is the week that FPOC, the previous supplemental program, ended.
Okay. And how long has this program been available? I feel like, and it's not a criticism, but I'm just curious, like, did Wisconsin kind of come on the tail end of this, or did we file just as soon as we were able?
So we were pretty much in the middle. So with about 30 states, were ahead of us in applying. So we're kind of in that middle area. I believe the executive order, I think, was August 10th, which was a Saturday. And so just running the traps and understanding all the ins and outs of the program, there really was pretty cloudy guidance in the beginning. And like I said, DOL and FEMA picked up the pace, and we worked with them closely to understand the ramifications, all the ins and outs and the legalities of who's on the hook for what when this program is implemented. So just, I think, took some time to get that guidance and have a clear understanding of what each party was responsible for. And at this point, we're hopeful to hear back from FEMA here soon on an approval.
Yeah, what is their normal, is there a normal turnaround time or?
So I think this is the first time that something like this happened where FEMA has administered a grant through states' unemployment insurance programs. Anecdotally, we are hearing they're happening really fast. So I think we had a few I's to dot and T's to cross as far as kind of cleaning up some of the pieces on Friday. So I don't want to set an expectation, but we were hearing from our other states through workforce associations that FEMA was approving very quickly. So we got all of our I's dotted and T's crossed late last week. We should hear relatively soon.
With that, we've talked about that before on this webinar, that, it's been hard for businesses who laid staff off initially. It's been hard to get them to come back to work because this little bump, they made more money on unemployment than they did working. What have you seen on your end? Is that the same? I mean, are you hearing that? Are you seeing that as well? That it's, even though the unemployment rate is what it is, it's really hard to get folks to come back because they're making, if they're hourly workers, they're making money off from unemployment.
So I think we're hearing and seeing a mix. A lot of what we've heard is actually the lack of demand, that a lot of those jobs aren't there, that folks, aren't able to go back to a position that is no longer there. And then, FPUC, that $600 a week bump, was meant to be stimulus in nature, not necessarily ongoing unemployment insurance. And I think that was hopefully pretty clear to folks that were, receiving that benefit, that was temporary, although there's still an ongoing need for that with the amount of jobs that are out there. And then the other piece too, at least in Wisconsin, if you are offered suitable work, especially the job that you were laid off from, and you refuse that work, you are no longer eligible for UI. So it's hard to kind of reconcile that anecdote of people refusing to go back because they're making more unemployment, because then you would lose it. So I'm a little, I guess, sometimes skeptical of how widespread that is. I mean, and when you put that program together, they put it together to be an average. And so when you use an average of what 100% wage replacements, you're going to have sometimes half, but in this case, since it's an average instead of a median, you have more than half the people on that benefit that are making more than they were when they were working. And so, perhaps going forward, looking at a median, but I guess the resounding thing that we've been hearing and reading is that, it's just as much about, the demand going back to jobs that aren't there anymore is as much of an issue as anything else in Wisconsin. If you refuse work, you don't get that $600 a week anymore. So it's been a mix of feedback on supplemental programs like FPUC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it may even, get tougher as we go through this. I think the PPP and the EIDL and all of these other, the Dane County grant and the We're All In, all of these things were super helpful. But now we're, at the time, like that might have lasted 3 to 4 months for a business. And now, now we're looking and saying, oh my gosh, our holiday is going to be, it's a gamble to see how people are going to react with consumer confidence down and so forth. So I think, we'll see going into this holiday how folks will do. And hopefully small businesses will do a good job, with pivoting, and that means we can, continue to employ so many people. One tool that I don't think a lot of small businesses are aware of, there's been a number of them that regretfully have to let folks go or lay them off or whatever, which is just super hard for any business owner. But there are some tools out there that I think, if that should happen to us in our businesses, primarily the jobcenterofwisconsin.com, as I'm rolling through that, has some really great tools for helping people. I mean, if it's a certain skill set you have, you may be more limited, but if you're willing to look into other areas, that's a really great resource, right? Where people can go and see maybe they have skills for another type of job. Pardon me.
Yeah, it's a great resource for both job seekers and for employers. So it's the state's free labor exchange. So jobcenterofwisconsin.com. Last I looked, I think last week there were, I want to say 135,000 resumes and about 70,000 job openings. So a really robust listing for both employers looking for workers and folks looking for new work. And so to be able to access that for free, and it is searchable by geography, by skill set, by veteran status. And so we were really, I think, pleased by the utilization of JCW. In the beginning of the pandemic, we put together a specific page for what we called in-demand jobs when we were still, labeling whether your business was essential or not essential. When those essential employers were looking for additional help, people were really utilizing our in-demand jobs page, which I checked last week. It's still up, but just JCW in general is a really helpful tool for both folks looking to find new work and for employers. And a lot of the folks accessing or filing for unemployment insurance have registered on JCW and have their resume out there. So there's a lot of hopefully skilled, qualified folks that are unfortunately out of work, but that are looking for a new employer that might be able to bring them into the fold.
Yeah, again, the website is jobcenterofwisconsin.com. If you're not familiar with it, you may want to give it a glance. It's a really great tool. Lots of good information on there, and it's a good place to go. And again, if this happens to you where you need to lay people off, it's a great resource for you to provide to employees, but also if you're looking for staff to go there as well. Any other questions that are coming through? I see, again, if you've reached out private here, I know you have some questions that are really pertinent. I will respond. I'll send an email to Caleb and with your name and contact information, I think would be most helpful. Caleb, then you can connect with those folks if that works for you. But obviously there are really questions that relate to your situation alone. So, and folks are asking how they can get in touch with you. I think if you need to get a hold of Caleb, if you want to just shoot me an email, I'll put my email address out here, and then I'll be happy to reach out to Caleb for you. So with no other questions, we just again want to say thanks for all you're doing. I know that job just has to be so challenging with everything we're given, and we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So just hang in there. We're in this together, right? So hang in there, and please thank your staff for everything they're doing for us.
Well, thanks, Peggy. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning, and appreciate the invite, and probably see you in 6 or 8 weeks again.
We look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining us this morning, and we'll see everyone on the 14th. Have a good couple of weeks here, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us.